What is your "this person has no idea how the real world works" moment? Story 1. My uncle raised his 2 kids in Hong Kong by forbidding them from watching any TV, taking public transportation, or being out by themselves at any time. They spend their days at an English-only international school, then come home after school and read English books. One day, we had a family gathering. Very rare because apparently Chinese food is not good for them, and I realized that these kids are raised in Hong Kong but they speak no Chinese. They don't know how to use public transportation, they have no friends, they're uninformed about what's happening in the world outside of their school and their home. They're just really uncomfortable around people in general. They turn 18 this year. These 2 kids have no idea what the outside world is like. I should clarify, every person involved in this story is native Hong Kong Chinese. Story 2. I had a woman call into work, banking, and ask for a mortgage payoff. It was like $40,000. She said there was no way that was right because her payment book only had 3 more coupons in it, and she thought it was done when the coupons were. She couldn't comprehend that she had a 30-year mortgage and that she didn't get a coupon book for all 30 years. She only got 3 years at a time because she had an adjustable rate. I had to call backups to explain to her that she owed 27 more years. Probably a tiny home that needs work. $40K is possible in this area still. Coupon books tell you when your payment is due and what amount, if you don't bank online or want to mail a payment in. Amish and old folks still don't use the internet here as a norm. Story 3. My cousin and I were talking one day and I mentioned that I had a horrible sense of direction, where my brother could be dropped off in a cornfield and still find his way home. She replied that it was easy to find your direction. Just remember, never eat shredded wheat, and you will know where north is. I laughed and said that was for remembering the directions in order, not for finding which way was which. We argued for 20 minutes till I told her to show me how it works. She stands up and points forward and says, "Never eat shredded wheat," and points to the direction she was facing when she stood up. That's north. So I told her to face me and then find north. She does it again. "Never eat shredded wheat," and points at me and says, "That's north." So ask her if north just changed. She says no. But north was that way a minute ago? She looks confused and says, "Why didn't that work?" I told her it was because she was an idiot. Story 4. Got into a fender bender in high school. I was driving a car that cost me $300, had been sitting on concrete blocks at a cousin's, patched it and bought wheels, and I was absolutely devastated. The kid who hit me wasn't freaking out at all and kept saying his dad would get him another one. Why was I so worried about an old car? Once the dad got there, it turned out this is the 3rd car his kid has wrecked for that school year. I shouldn't have said fender bender. We use that term pretty loosely just to say, no one was hurt, but the car is sad. The kids hit my front right side going too fast and messed up my axle, and obviously bodywork. I was freaked out because a new car or any fixes to my current car were coming out of my own pocket. This kid was getting his fixed or replaced by his dad, and couldn't understand why I'd be upset about my old beater. I did not get a brand new car from insurance, but I saved up and bought my grandma's car when she stopped driving. That giant Buick. Yes, it was a LeSabre in forest green. It was invincible and lasted me the rest of high school and college. Story 5. Air Force. An 18-year-old arrives at his first duty station. He has contacted nobody knows he's arriving today. He has figured out by stopping at different offices and asking where a warehouse is and enters the office to meet his supervisor, flanked by his girlfriend and his mother. Later on, it is discovered that he fudged his numbers on all his previous fitness tests to that point, which is why he could barely do 25 push-ups and couldn't run to save his life. Even later on, he becomes hysterical, sobbing, panicking, begging, and pleading when told he will deploy to Afghanistan, like everyone else in the squadron had been doing for years. This was in 2012. We were logistics. We literally loaded airplanes all day. Story 6. I went to a metal music festival with a friend and camped there. We had just woken up and she pulled out her hair straightener and asked where the outlets were. When I told her that there are no outlets in the camping grounds, she looked at me in horror and said, "So I won't be able to straighten my hair for 3 days?" The festival was Grasspop in Belgium. I think it was 2013 to 2014. Generators weren't allowed. They saw it as a safety hazard. And the phone charging stands just had charging cables hanging out of them, not the outlets. There were also stands where you could give your phone with your own charger and they'd lock it up. Other than that, it was just a field packed with tents. She eventually took it like a champ and just embraced the metal festival life. Had quite some fun otherwise. Story 7. I'm attending graduate school in Barcelona, and there are these 2 Colombian girls in my class who I'm pretty sure have never had to work for anything in their life. We just had our first final the other day, and while the test was hard, I thought it was pretty straightforward. It was essay-type questions, and you needed to draw on things we discussed in class to answer each question. A few minutes into the exam, one of the girls raises her hand and says she doesn't know what to do. Fair enough. The professor tells her to use class theories to answer the question asked. She then said that she doesn't know how to relate any class theories to the question. I was literally sitting there, having already answered one question and having used 4 to 5 different class topics to answer it. I couldn't understand why she was having such a hard time. The other Colombian girl then says, "Can you just write on the board which theories you want us to answer?" She asks the professor of a graduate school class to answer a question for her. The professor then goes a bit too far and gives her a few clues. 20 minutes later, she raises her hand and once again asks, "Can you read what I wrote and tell me if I'm right, or should I do it again?" Story 8. A friend of mine decided to quit his job to become a Twitch streamer. Right off the bat, I thought this was a stupid plan. But the real kicker was his timeline for a streaming career. He told me he saved enough money to pay his bills for 1 month. 1 month! And after that, he would be making enough money from Twitch to pay his bills. He seriously believed that after 1 month he would have between 200 and 300 subs. He refused to advise or use any social media. He won't play any AAA games or even popular games. A year and a half later, he's lost his apartment, his car, basically everything but his girlfriend, who he lives with. But hey, he just hit 50 followers on Twitch and got affiliated. To him, this endeavor has been a total success. Story 9. When I was talking with a group of friends about trying to save money while also paying off loans and said, the first month was terrible. I struggled to even save £100. A girl burst out laughing. She's never paid rent, lived with her parents who also bought her food, etc. And her fiancé is super rich, so was the source of the deposit in their house. And she works in telesales making plenty of commission and has lots of designer handbags. I felt like but it's more of a reflection on her than me. Story 10. Former barista here. A customer came through the drive-thru one afternoon, ordering a custom drink that cost about $5. While on the phone, he dug change out of the corners of his van and handed me what amounted to less than $3. I continued looking at him with my hand extended, half full of dirty coins, when he just shrugged and said, "That's all I got." I repeated the total and said he hadn't given me enough. "Can you just spot me with your tips?" Excuse me? First, no, that's literally my grocery money. And second, our company had a strict policy against doing just that. But I simply apologized and said no, I couldn't do that. He blew up at me, saying I wasn't being very neighborly. I again apologized and explained how I relied on my tip money to, eat. Instead, he screamed at me again. "You suck. You really suck," before driving away. This has happened in a small town and most people there don't know how the real world works. Story 11. My ex. Let me set up this story by saying we split about 3 months ago. All of her friends and family still reach out to me to tell me how she's struggling, and I love it. This is a girl that didn't have any idea how to cook for herself. Grilled cheese was beyond the realm of possibility. She never cleaned a thing in her life, never helped with the dishes, did the laundry one time. She said she hated it and never did it again. Didn't like doing the grocery shopping or even going to the store because there were too many options. Not to mention, we were living off of my salary. Her hobbies included Netflix and listening to audiobooks while driving. She broke up with me because I didn't want to wear a gold sequin tie, suspenders, and shoes to the wedding, let alone make my friends wear them too. I thought she always understood how much I did for her and she appreciated it. I had no idea how wrong I was. When her friend commented to her about how she's lucky to have me to do everything for her, she replied, "Well, I'm the one that is doing more than half the wedding planning." Story 12. My ex-girlfriend dumped me because she said, "I don't want to work when I'm 30. With the undertone that I would not be able to support her stay-at-home lifestyle. She's currently pursuing a master's in psychology and she'll finish around 26 or 27. Then she has 3 years, which I assume she'll practice counseling until she wants to stop working. At which point, she expects some dude to just pay her way. So she dumped me and found this chud who had this 10-year plan. He was gonna get his undergrad, go to business school, and then go to law school. So he's not even going to finish school until about 29. So then he's got 1 year to start making enough money to support his wife, who is no longer going to work for the rest of her life. Story 13. I worked on a group project with these 2 girls in high school. We had met up at a library over the weekend, and when I pulled into the parking lot, one of them said something about my car. I said, "Yeah, I love this car, but someone keyed it in the parking lot all down the passenger side. Look how deep it is." I told her I couldn't fix it beyond some touch-up paint either because that would require sanding it down and all that. She looked me dead in the eye with a look like I was crazy and said, "Well, why don't you go buy some elbow grease? I hear that fixes everything." Dead serious. The girl had heard about just give it some elbow grease and got into her head that this was a product you could buy to fix just about anything. She did not contribute much to our group project. Story 14. I have a friend who's an only child and has been completely sheltered and spoiled by her parents. She's not a bad person per se, but has zero common sense and often adopts this "I deserve this and that, so I don't understand why I didn't get it" mentality. This is especially true for grades. We're both special education majors. I have so many stories about her on this topic, but here's the one where I realized that she was f***ed as a special educator. So per our degree, we have to take behavioral theories class, which focuses on emotional disorders in children, bipolar, schizophrenia, severe depression, and other stuff like that. With this course, we had to go in the field and observe children that were in a group home. To be noted, these children are severely mentally disturbed. So much so, the principal of the school and the director of the house came to our class to brief us on what we can and cannot do, as well as made sure we understood. Basic rules. Don't speak unless the teacher speaks to you. Don't interact with the students outside basic. Minimal conversation. Don't ask about anything in their lives. Don't engage in conversation. Don't be provocative. This quite literally translates to, don't show any skin except your face because some of these kids are here on crimes for sexual assault. It was a very try to blend in, don't draw attention to yourself situation due to the intensity of the students' emotional problems. Well, one day I run into my friend in the dining hall and she just starts crying. I ask her what's wrong and she just starts wailing about how she got kicked out of the house and all her hours were retracted. Well, what'd you do? First, she got offended that I assumed it was her fault and I didn't immediately take her side but then proceeded to tell me. Basically, she broke every rule we were given throughout one conversation. First, the room was hot, so she took off her button-up sweater, revealing a tank top underneath. Teachers caught that quickly and made her put her sweater on. Then she noticed one kid has a black eye, probably from a fight with another kid, and she asked him about it, then proceeded to press the question when he refused to speak. And I cannot stress this enough. These children were extremely disturbed. She should not have been talking to them, period, let alone pressing this child about a black eye. After that, they asked her to leave, sent an email to our professor and told her she was banned from coming back due to unprofessionalism. She kept talking about how it was unfair and she doesn't understand why she got kicked out and I didn't, since we were in the building at the same time. I told her this isn't a group project. She f***ed this up on her own. Maybe I was an ass, but I can't bring myself to coddle her when she feels entitled to everything. Then she starts begging me for my notes from the house and to help her finish her paper for it, but I told her, frankly, to f*** off. I didn't get kicked from the house, you did. She then tried to use the friend guilt card and I told her to go to academic support if she wants help. There were a lot of moments I felt this friend wasn't ready for the real world, but this and other incidents highlighted that she might not be ready to be an educator of any form. The reason I'm still friends with her is that she honestly isn't that bad of a person. She has some bad qualities, but I know when and when not to be with her. Hanging out outside of classes is fine. Discussing anything school-related is infuriating. Story 15. Last year, I got a job offer, which required a move. I found a place which required first and last as a deposit. Not usual. Unfortunately, I had been unemployed for most of the year before this and didn't have enough money to cover 2 months' rent up front, about £1,500, as well as survive in the city for a month before I got my first paycheck. So I asked my parents for help, which sucked but had to be done. They flipped the fuck out of me because they genuinely thought that was too much and was more like a deposit to buy a house. I spent many nights explaining to them that the modern world is not like it was in the 70s, but to avail. They now want me to put a deposit in the house. When I said I can't afford that, because I can't, they said it wasn't a big deal. Just get a 100% mortgage from the bank and pay it off over time. Story 16. My coworker genuinely believes that raises are time-based, not performance-based. For example, he works a part-time second job at a barbecue place, only works 2 nights a week, gives up every shift he can to someone else, and pretty much only works there so that he can steal food. Yet after a year he was talking about how he deserved a raise. Same with the job we work together. Puts in very little effort to work at a very slow pace, barely ever takes the initiative of any kind, and throws a fit when asked to do anything outside of what he considers to be his job. Still thinks he deserves a raise every year when his review comes up. This guy is also in his early 30s. Story 17. I encounter at least one per day. This morning was about mortgages. This woman was talking about moving to Florida soon and putting her house in the market. I'm a first-time homebuyer in my 20s, interested in buying something modest. She nonchalantly says that they'll probably ask for about $300K just to break even and move. I said, yeah, that's way out of my price range, which is more like $180K. She's very confused and says that if I don't have a bunch of bills, that should be very affordable for me. I ask her how much she thinks the monthly payment would be, and she says maybe $2K. I say, yeah, at least. Plus homeowner's insurance, car payment, gas, healthcare, phone bill, water bill, the electric bill, internet bill, groceries, 401K, etc. On single income. I'm lucky to have a job with good benefits, and I'm aware of that, but I'm far from making 6 figures. The fact is, this woman works as a cafeteria cashier and married into money, and she's absolutely clueless about budgeting even in her 50s. Story 18. A kid once informed me that he didn't need to pass the class I was presently substitute teaching. Yay, maternity leave. Because he was going to play a professional sport. He had it all mapped out, like down to the draft picks, with vast amounts of detail, and other students were just nodding along cheerfully. So I said, cool. And if you tear your ACL at practice, fail to realize the severity of the injury, get back up on it, and wind up needing surgery, being benched for the season, and not making varsity, what precisely is your backup plan? That won't happen. Really? You've never jumped over something high outside? Never slipped on anything? You are magic and injuries simply don't happen to you? I could still play pro ball, or I could be a manager. Yeah, I could be a manager. Managers need a sports management degree and another in business, none of which are even close to possible without at least a C in this very class. Are you sure? Always have a backup for your backup plan, bro. Trust me, not everyone's as lucky as I am, getting to teach you all. Sparkly, half-joking teacher grin, kids giggle. If you say so. 2 weeks later, to my abject horror, a kid did tear his ACL, anterior cruciate ligament, at practice, and was about to get back up on it when the kid had gotten after about his derpy life choices told him no, and to hold still. And the coach reckoned he saved his teammate from surgery, though of course, the teammate was benched for the season in a leg immobilizer. Everyone heard about it, and the student was praised for his quick thinking, sitting with his teammate and sending another student to get the coach and some ice and call someone to get his teammate to the hospital. And when he got to my class, he came in quietly, a little before the other kids, looking like he'd seen a ghost. What do I need to pass for sports medicine? He might have started clueless, but he graduated high school with his nurse assistant certification and is presently a biology major angling for pre-med. Decided to try for a biathlon scholarship instead of basketball because he preferred the odds and is going quite nicely. Graduated in the top 10 of his high school class too, even with taking academic and VOTEC because he wanted a backup plan. It makes more at his part-time nursing assistant job than any two unqualified entry-level jobs would pay. Great kid. I was blessed to teach him even for just a bit. Story 19. I'm in my early 30s and just doing graduate school now. I'm one of the oldest people in my class. The majority are straight out of undergrad or have at most 1 to 2 years of work experience. The class I recently took is a study of what causes military conflict between nations. Pretty interesting class, with a professor who obviously knows his shit. This one girl would always go out of her way to make sure we all knew her opinion on every matter. She majored in international relations at a good undergraduate school, took one study abroad to France, and thought she knew the answers to all the world's political problems. She would constantly use buzzwords and nonsensical jargon to essentially argue that the only reason we have wars is that women are not in charge. We all did our best to ignore her, but sometimes she would say such stupidly ignorant things that people would go off on her. She's a prime example of somebody who read a theory once in some chapter and thought that she knew what was best for an international system of politics that has been developing over the last few centuries.